Hey, Chandra.
Hey G, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are
Oh,
you?
wonderful. I can't top wonderful. I'm doing well. I'm doing well, but I can't top wonderful.
I think that, what do we call this? Friday Eve.
R-
That's what makes me feel
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay. Friday Junior. I'll take that.
Yes. Yes.
I'll take that. It's kind of funny. It's been one of those weeks where I have not been able to keep track of the days and just realize like it really is. It really is Friday Junior. It's
It
all
really,
good then. It's all good.
it really is. We are here with Reflections from the Heart, our live broadcast. Thank you to everyone who is joining us.
Yes. I'm
Who's
gonna
with us
check the
today?
page now. I am checking. All right, we are live. So
Yes.
I'm excited. I'm excited, and I am so excited to have the perspective of these next educators working in our schools in the role of paraprofessional. Which I'm just saying I'm gonna let them say because what is going on right now in our schools and the work that paraprofessionals are doing. Listen, as my former principal would say, God's work.
Yes.
God's work, most definitely. So I am excited to bring on Chenetha Lockett and Yonette Lacet. Welcome to our broadcast, ladies. Welcome.
Hello,
Thank you for having
everyone.
me.
Welcome.
Thank you.
It's
Oh,
awesome to have you
exciting.
both. This is the place where Chandra and I get to bring all kinds of players to the table. And
Mhm.
so we've had school counselors, we've had principals, we've had all kinds of folks. And I was most excited, to be honest, to talk to you all because, like Chandra said, the paraprofessionals are, as the young people would say, are holding it down in the building. Because when people are not there, they're filling in. When students are having a hard time, they are there to assist. Please introduce yourselves in the way you'd like, and we'll get into the conversation. Yonette, can we start? Yonette?
Sure. My name is Yonette Lacet Feast, and I am a paraprofessional for kindergarten classroom. And I've been in the system for so many years, I can't even count how many. It's been more than 12 years, for
Wow.
sure. Working in mostly a kindergarten role. I might have done fourth grade once, but kindergarten mostly has been my love because I do love working with young children.
That's fantastic. Right there, can we just give you some cash? Can we just kindergarten?
You'll take that. You'll take that.
Bless you.
Because
Pay for,
I'm a middle school lady.
oh,
Kindergarten?
yeah, people always say that.
I do too. Walk by and wave.
Yes.
Well, sometimes I know. Sometimes they underestimate kindergartners because sometimes some of the fifth graders, like fifth grade teachers have told me, I praise you working in kindergarten. I couldn't deal with the crying and I couldn't deal with all these things. But the thing is, fifth graders can cry too.
Yo,
They
yeah.
break down too, and they have moments.
You're
Yeah.
right.
So it's interesting. They're all children, so but the younger ones need a little more attention.
Hmm.
So yeah, definitely. But you can grasp them early, so that's why I like that age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Teaching them the characters, having for them to be able to have like great characters, early on. You got to catch them early.
Yeah.
Yes. But
Everything you ever needed to learn, you learned in kindergarten. That's what they
Mhm.
say.
it's true.
Definitely, it's like raising children again.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Denitha, share with us.
My name is Chenetha Lockett. I work at an early ed school in Mattapan. School goes from K0 to third grade. I work in the second grade classroom, an SEI classroom, where my students' English is not their first language. I've been in the BPS system for 6 years now, but I have been working with kids for 17 plus years.
Wow.
And I'm just excited to be here today to hear everybody else and how they're feeling working through this pandemic, and just to know that there's so many people out there, voices are being heard, and that Paris have a support system. I'm excited for today.
Yes, I need in the chat. Come on, y'all. In the Real Talk Real Time community. If you on here, can you shout out your paraprofessional? Say something good about him in the chat. Come on. You just excited me, Chenetha. Thank you for that.
I know. And it's so interesting to me. Like, if I say third grade teacher, like everybody kind of gets an idea about what that means. I say paraprofessional, and it depends on where you're working, what type of school you're working in, what city you're working in. Like the roles are just like so vast, and I know, you all have had so many years in the system, and I can only imagine that your roles have changed, sometimes day to day have changed, right? And I'm pretty sure definitely now things have changed, right? So I'm really curious to kind of hear pre-pandemic versus kind of like now. Like, what does it look like for you in your role in your classroom, in the school, things that you might have had to take on, or even roles that you're now playing with kids, because some kids have experienced a whole different level of trauma than we saw pre-pandemic. So Chenetha, why don't you just start off and just tell us about what your experience has been like?
So I'll start with like what's going on currently in education and my role now. I feel like at times oh, am I a babysitter today? There's times where I feel like I'm a babysitter. Like, I know we all came back from vacation week and it was this big surge, and there was times I was going in the classroom and it was like 3 students. And it's like, we want you to go on with the curriculum and not pause the curriculum. It's like, how can we do that with 3 students? I have 3 students and I'm supposed to keep going with the curriculum. So at that point, you just feel like you're just handing out busy work. It's not even about teaching now. It's trying to, make the time go by so that you could get a full classroom. Like, January is about to be over, and we still haven't started our new curriculum yet because the month of January has just been so crazy. And these students are already behind. I feel like part of my role in the classroom now has been defending their academic abilities. I hear so much talk in the hallways. It's like, they're in 2nd grade, and can you believe they don't know how to do this? They can't write an E. They don't know an I. And it's like, remember, these kids were in K2 when this pandemic first started. That's the grade where they were learning to write, learning letter recognition, and we put them in front of a computer where they pressed buttons. They didn't have to put pencil to a paper. Of course, they're struggling writing letters. So if we have to go back and get the paper with the dots to show them how to write an A, that's what we have to do. But all this complaining and acting like we're forgetting what our school system has been through the past 2 years, it's just prolonging where we should be doing with these kids. So I feel like that is something that is just so major right now. It's constantly having to trying to defend why the students are where they are right now in the classroom. I feel like I had an incident today when you're saying like kids have went through so much trauma. I feel like I'm more of a social worker now in the classroom than I am like worrying about their academic needs, because mentally, if they have anxiety, if they're dealing with depression, that affects their schoolwork. Like if we're going to just ignore that, then we cannot expect to see growth in their schoolwork if we're not going to worry about the mental illness, the trauma that's going on with these kids. I had a student today. She's so attached to me. So attached to the point, like if I'm absent, she has anxiety and she's just like all over the place. So it's like, it's between a rock and a hard place, because I'm trying to like set boundaries with her, try to help her gain confidence where it's like, you can do this even if Miss Lockett is not around, So it's like first couple of months, I might give it to you. I might baby you. I might sit here at this table with you. But now we're in January. So Miss Lockett has to try to pull back. But then you have the heart when like this baby has been through so much, like, and they can't get where they need to be academically if I'm not worried about this piece, if I'm not bringing light to this piece. So I feel like I'm constantly like talking to the social worker, like, hey, I noticed this, and hey, I noticed this, and this student mentioned this in class today. One of our students, like, she's just talking freely, and she's talking to the kids about how her and her family had to travel through the waters to get here and how people was taking their food. And she's just talking so freely about it. And it's like, second grader, like, you went through this? This broke my heart. So I feel like our role has changed so much in the classroom. I feel like I'm the babysitter at times. I'm their mom at times. I'm their social worker. I'm the custodian at times, especially with, cleaning tables, making sure the bathroom is wiped down. At the school we're at, our custodian's supposed to come in every 2 hours to clean our bathrooms and wipe down high touch areas. That doesn't happen. So who does it fall on? It falls on us parents.
You are unloading. Oh, so.
Oh, and you've been walking around the building having to hold stuff in, and you can only talk to, other para friends, and the principal doesn't want to hear you, or the administrator doesn't want to hear you. When you get on a platform where people can feel you and people can relate to you, oh, it's all coming out. It's all coming out.
Yes.
Come on,
especially when you're passionate about this. Like, I've been working with kids for 17 plus years. That's where my heart is at. So when if something you're passionate about, it's gonna come out, especially at a time like this.
Yes. Well, shout out right in the chat. They said, listen, the paraprofessionals at schools are holding us together. They're teaching, planning, substituting, training others, doing it all. Social worker and everything else that you're talking about. And I could be wrong, but I didn't hear anything about a pay raise.
Okay. No.
I'm just asking.
You didn't.
I'm just checking.
But even while you were talking, Chenetha, it was making me hope that there are parents that will watch this and listen to the very first thing that you said also about complaining. Hey, we don't need it. Keep your complaining. Be a part of the team. Okay? I'm going to move on. 2 for the parents, because I could go there for a minute. That the students have been impacted by this. And so stop comparing the older siblings' second grade experience to the current second grade experience. We can't do that. So parents, please be aware of that. I just wanted to make sure we said that. I know this is all for educators, but sometimes even as educators, when we put on our parent hat, we forget that it's not the same. It's not the same for the younger and the older child. And in this particular case, definitely not.
Can you say that for the district leaders who might not have heard that? Because as Gia said many times, this is our first pandemic, right? First one that we all know. We're trying to figure this out. So to sit here and say, oh, we need to catch them up. We need to do, fill these gaps. We need to make up 2 years. We need to act like we're using the same standards that we.
It's like what? And it's funny when it's like a para's voice, because I remember going through this last year with my second grade students last year. We were pushing. So I co-teach with Caucasian young, she's younger than me, lady. And just pushing the second grade curriculum. Another role that changes, paras are now being invited to the meetings, CPT meetings, IEP meetings. You're important. Your voice matters now because you're spending the most time with the kids. So we're in a CPT meeting, and I'm like, the principal's there. I'm like, I have a problem, because it's like, we're pushing the second grade curriculum and these kids could barely count to 10. So like, what are we doing? I feel like we need to take it a step back. I'm not saying get rid of the second grade curriculum, but before we could move forward, sometimes we have to go backwards, completely shut down. No, that's what we cannot do. We have to keep them, like you were saying, push them along, catch them up. Now those second graders are third graders. Now that was coming from a para's mouth. They get to third grade, their teacher says the same thing I said, but now they're in third grade. Like, I can't teach the third grade curriculum. They're nowhere near there. Talked to the principal. Do you mind if I go back on the second grade curriculum? Oh, sure. Got approval. So it makes it feel like, oh, so because I'm a para, it means nothing. It holds no value. But a teacher can come and say the same thing I just said last year, and she can go. Maybe if it held value last year, they would be further along than they are now in third grade.
Wow, okay, mic drop. I can leave now because wow.
That's a lot, yeah.
Go ahead, Yonette. Just jump.
That's deep.
Wow. I mean, I work in a different type of classroom, so it's different, you know what I mean? Because I used to work in the autism classroom for like a lot of years, but I had to leave because I couldn't bear the things that was going on with special needs kids. So I couldn't do it. So I had to go back to regular ed, which is what is regular ed, because everyone's, in there. So
Yep.
I'm not really back in regular ed. But as far as the pandemic is concerned, like you mentioned, the CPT meetings, when it first started and we were on Zoom only, so we were invited to CPTs, but I think we were invited to CPTs because at that time, 2 years ago, I guess the district wanted to make sure everyone was working because you're home. Because what am I doing really at the CPT meetings? You know what I mean?
Yes.
But they just wanted you to keep getting on. So that is just what I know had to be the reason, because I don't go to CPT readings anymore as we're back in the building.
Neither do I.
It was only, that was pre-pandemic. Now the thing is, like you said, we do wear a lot of hats. You know what I mean? We're parents, we're like you said, social workers, we're, like you said, custodians. My custodian's a really good custodian, but we still have to clean our classroom periodically. They have snack, we have to clean double because of the pandemic. So we have to always, after every child eats, we clean. You know what I mean? Until the next child eats, and we have to keep a window open. The kids are wearing coats, we have 2 machines going in the room, air cleaners. So it's been really crazy. I've always covered lunch and recess. So I'm basically a lunch mother, but I've always done it because it's my kids that I'm with. So I never complained about it, but I've always done it. But I'm not a lunch mother. You know what I mean? But as far as the curriculum goes, it is hard because the kids that were with us and who are now in first grade are struggling. They're struggling. Some of them that were already struggling are struggling because you can't expect them to learn on the computer the way they would learn in class when they're like in front of you. Because some of them would turn off the camera. Some of them would be playing a game on the side. We can't, you know what I mean? They're in their homes. They're in their private homes. You can't tell them physically, stop, really,
No.
you know what I mean? They're home. You can't control what they're doing in their own environment. So that part was really tough, I think, being on Zoom with the children. I was just like, what's going on? Like, and then you having to still have children take tests, having to still test them throughout this whole thing. Why are we still testing these children? They're not ready to be tested because they can't even like focus. The other day I was sitting with a small group, this group that was really, that struggles a little bit more in our classroom with some ELA work. And all of a sudden, we have one of them have a new sibling that started K1. And so she was mentioning it to me because they talk to you about their personal lives as they're working sometimes. And you have to, you're speaking to them. They're human beings. And she's like, my brother's in K1 now. And I'm like, oh, that's great. You can get on the bus with him. Because she was one of the kids that was afraid to get on the bus. And because she said the word brother, it triggered another student who's struggling, who doesn't speak a lot, who may be on the spectrum, but I'm not sure. He heard brother and suddenly said a tragic thing that happened to his brother. He's like, my brother's dead. You know what I mean? My brother, and then he said how it happened. And I'm like, he's 5. And then he's saying this in front of me and the other 3 students. So they're like, oh, that's so sad. I'm like, yeah, it is. We'll talk about it more, like I couldn't continue that conversation with him until later. And then I spoke with the teacher I work with and then found out this happened 10 months ago. But the word brother triggered it.
Yep.
He's like, I just heard brother. Oh yeah, I had a brother that, and I just was like, we're constantly trying to like, I don't know. It's really hard, but the pandemic has been really hard, and breathing in these masks. You know what I mean? And then having to, they want you to tell the kids to keep the mask up over their nose. You're saying that about, I don't know, 1,000 times a day.
Yes.
Because they're 5 years old and 6 years old.
Yes.
They don't know that they're doing anything wrong, and they're eating lunch. They want to talk with their friends, and you're telling them they can't talk with their friends. It's as if you're like making their life miserable, but you don't want to, It's a lot, with this pandemic. It's been really hard having the kids, because they want to just play just like regular kids with their friends and be able to speak with them and be able to share and, do everything else. But it's not easy to do that because of these masks that we're having to wear. And then every time you turn around, someone's testing positive and they can't come in. And then when they come in, they got to test again. And then sometimes there's not enough tests in the schools. Sometimes the nurse just, recently sent us a message. There's not enough tests in the schools for adults. We have to wait till they come back. So the adults, you know what I mean? So there's just a lot of things going on because people are testing often.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's and then we're being interrupted almost every week for sure because people are coming in to do these tests for the children. The testing that they're doing. So they're interrupting the learning by doing that because they have to do it. So then you have to stop everything. They have to go out in the hallway, get tested, come back. So there's always interruptions. And then you're wondering why these children are not able to catch up or try to learn in the way that we did 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally different. I don't know how long we're going to be going through this, but
what advice would you guys give to your co-teachers? And I say this specifically because having had a paraprofessional be my co-teacher, having had a special educator be my co-teacher, there's a kind of synergy that has to take place in order for things to work. So here you both are describing your experience in this capacity. And then we often are talking to the teachers, the general ed teachers. What advice, what would you want? And I don't need you to speak specifically to the teacher you're working with. So if you're listening, this is just advice.
Well, I'm going to speak specifically to the teacher I'm working with. And I know you said, what advice would we give the teachers? But my advice for your question is not to the teachers. My advice would be to the parents, because I know what changed my classroom dynamic was me speaking up and letting my voice be heard. It's different when you have some parents who might be new and not know their place and still trying to figure it out. But when you're a strong para, even if you haven't been working in BPS for a long time and you have a passion for kids and right or wrong, you know what I'm saying? I had to speak up and say, I'm not just to help. I'm just going to have to be truthful. So I said I started off in 3rd grade and 2nd grade now. At first, our relationship was I would go to the bathroom. I would come back. There would be a sticky note on my desk that says, please cut these out with scissors and a thing. Maybe the first time I cut them out. Second time I cut them out. Third time, sticky note went from my desk to her desk. You don't need to be afraid to speak to me. I brought it to the principal and everybody else in charge. No one decided to speak on it. So I had to do what I had to do for myself. And not only for me, for the kids too, because I know I'm a vital part of this classroom that could benefit from helping these kids. The kids could benefit from me being in this classroom. So you're not going to just treat me like I'm the cutting person. So I had to let my voice be heard and say, this is what I'm strong in. This is what I'm capable of doing. This is not what I'm going to do. And once that was laid on the floor and I was given the room to show what I can do, now we have the greatest relationship. Nothing goes on in our classroom. Nothing gets changed in the curriculum without me being a part of the conversation. Even if I can't make it to an IEP meeting, even if I can't make it to a CPT meeting, soon as those meetings are over, she's coming back to me and saying, hey, so this is what went on. This is what went on. So my advice is not for the teachers. My advice is for the parents. We have to speak up. We have to speak up and let our place be known in the classroom. We have to. And it's for the kids' benefits, because the kid is going to benefit more from one teacher who knows what they're doing. They're going to benefit more from 2 teachers rather than 1. So we have to speak up. We have to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. The word for the paras, use your voice, lift each other up. I feel like that's a whole class.
Yes.
Chenetha, I feel like, you were talking about, new paras that come into the classroom, come into the system. That should be a course that other paraprofessionals are teaching. Because co-teaching, that's what is happening.
You just opened up a whole new thing, because new paras coming in and going straight into the classroom without having to talk to an old para and see the way. I just think that is so crazy. We are setting some of these paras up for failure. We just send them in the classroom and say, figure it out.
You're right.
But you know, Shanita, you
Hmm.
thought you didn't give advice to the teachers, but you did. Because even the example that you gave about the post-it note, the thing that I really got from what you said is, I'm here. See me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm present. Recognize, acknowledge. And sometimes adults do that to children too. So if
Mm-hmm.
that teacher will do that to the paraprofessional, the person who was there to co-facilitate everything that's happening from bathrooms to tissues to calling parents, you also know that there's times where they might have dismissed the
Do that.
child.
Yes.
So
That's
that's
so
not
true.
okay. It's not okay. So
Mhm.
people, collaborators, even the parents, they want and need to be seen. The students, the paraprofessionals, as well as the administrators. They don't want people to think they could just walk and talk all over them. But
Mm-hmm.
especially the paraprofessionals, thank you for stating your truth. That was your truth,
Mhm.
Yes.
and we can
Mhm.
relate to it. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. So, Yonette, what advice would you give? I guess to teachers, to parents, to anybody. What advice would you give?
Um, it wouldn't be for me. It wouldn't be specifically to teachers in my current position right now. But what Shaniqua was talking about. I've seen it. I've
Mhm.
seen it. I've heard it, and definitely have experienced it in the past.
Mm.
But currently, I'm working with a great teacher who is definitely so inclusive. She'll even, and she's Caucasian, and not that it matters, but she will, like, this is in the past years, with even like an administrator, not my current administrator, who would come in the room and would say something to her, and she'll be like, she'll say out loud in front of me, and Yonette, like,
Mhm.
really
Mm.
respects
Right.
me. I
Because you're,
really
yes.
appreciate that, because, and with the children too, she really says me and Miss Lacet, Miss Lacet and
Mm.
I. And when she writes the morning message, she puts my name first before
Yep.
her name. Like, she
Mm.
is making sure that she includes me, and I love working with her. But the only thing that's a little bit off, and it's not the teacher I'm working with, because she really includes me in everything. She asks my advice. We go through a lot of things together. We work very well together. But sometimes it's other adults, like, that's coming to
Mm.
teach in the classroom. They'll say, and they may not know they're saying it, but they'll say to the students, okay, I'm going to let Miss Skillen, like the teacher know that I work with. Like, I'm going to let the teacher know. But, and I'm sitting right there with these kids, because we spend more time with the children than the classroom teacher, because the classroom teacher have P&Ds, but we're still in the P&Ds with the students. So the only time I have off really is my lunch period. So I spend more time with the children. So the other adults in the building that's working with this student, like the specialist, that's
Mm.
who I really like. Some of them, maybe not all, but some of the specialists, not all, have to remember that we're also the students' teachers. And if you're not making them think that we're also their teachers and we're right here, then they're going to not feel that we're their teacher. And it's happened so much in the past that some students have said, Miss Lacet, are you the helper? Like, they asked it, you know
Mm.
what I mean? So then they don't really value you the way they value the teacher.
Teacher.
I mean, clearly the teacher has a teaching certificate. I mean, I have to say they have a teaching certificate. That's fine. But you still have to have both adults with, working with that student to be in that student's eye, an equal in that student's eye, if you want the classroom to run properly.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's just what I feel about it. But I'm really, as far as the teacher I'm working with these past couple of years, it's been great. It's just maybe other adults that come
Mhm.
in and kind of like say things to the student, not realizing what they're saying. You know.
I wonder what would be helpful to get the exact message that you just said to other adults in the building, right? So other adults, because some of it may be conscious, maybe unconscious. I have no idea, right?
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
what would be helpful, right?
I feel
To
like
tell
part
the
of
adult,
what
okay.
she's saying of that her teacher, because teachers are kind of held on a higher pedestal than us parents. So I feel like what her teacher is doing is kind of what needs to keep happening is when that administrator comes and talks to you and wants to just talk to you, oh no, Yonette, she's a part of this. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not in this classroom by myself. She's here too. So when I'm sending papers home or sending papers downstairs to the office, it has my name and the Paris
Mhm.
name. Or when I'm when I'm out, I remember my teacher, she was out and someone else came to sub, and it was someone else from our building who usually, like, when they like to sub, they like to take over and not leave, not run, go with the teacher said. And she put in there, if anyone knows this, no one knows this classroom like Miss Lockett. If you were confused, please ask her. So things like that, letting it be known, like, no, she's a vital part of this classroom. If you can't get to me, your next best thing is her. So I feel like that can also help bring some awareness and more acknowledgement to Para's roles in the classroom.
And if
And I've
you
definitely
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say, if you're viewing this and you don't have a para right now, put these things in your toolkit, because you don't know what school year you will be assigned to work with one. I had a principal that never let us get comfortable. He would change it in a heartbeat. You could plan all you want over the summer. You come in there, he's like, you're gonna be teaching this. So don't assume, I don't need to worry about this. This is really valuable advice for any educator, and in particular, our school leaders who are hearing from these fantastic paraprofessionals things that should be incorporated into changing the culture of a school by really putting these things into practice. Go ahead, Yonette.
Yeah. No, I was saying that telling the individual themselves what they're saying, like letting them know that your key role in this classroom as well. And when you say it, it's like maybe they wasn't conscious. So they're like, oh yeah, that's true. That, yes, of course, Miss Lacet too. Like then they'll say it because I'll remind them, hello, I'm here. But other than that, I would say just telling that individual that I am a key role in this classroom. If you're telling the student this person's name and not mentioning mine, then you're not valuing me. And that's it just won't work, with our students. I need to be known that I'm here as well. You know what I mean? And and for the most part, the kids, they may do it with a substitute. If I'm at lunch and there's a substitute, someone's covering. So some kids tend to be different. Just like when your parents are not home, you have someone come in, they're like, all of a sudden your parents come, you're like, so that's the same feeling that happens, especially in kindergarten. Like you walk in and like, oh, Miss Lacet's here. Not that you're doing anything to them, but they know that they weren't doing something that they should be doing. So they do know. But it doesn't help if the other, adult, not the classroom, but I've had a great principal. This principal I have now is wonderful, and the teacher I work with is wonderful. But other adults need to kind of get, and then I don't know. It's a lot. I've been a translator. I've been a lot of things, and I do it from the kindness of my heart. I know that people get paid to translate. I'm not asking you for any money. I'm doing it for the families because I'm almost like a family liaison basically as well. So there's just so many hats that I wear, but I wear it because I care about the children.
Yes.
But at least, not that I'm looking for an award, but just know that I'm here.
That's right.
Yeah,
you can say that. Recognize that I'm here. If you needed me to translate, you needed me, and you knew I was here when you needed translation. You can't all of a sudden forget all of a sudden. Yes. I mean,
I just have to laugh. I have to go back to this picture that I got in my head. And Yonette, you said this when you said, and I need the families, and I need everyone who's not an educator to hear this again. You said the children are sitting in the classroom with coats on. Now, we all know why that is happening, but I guarantee you some folks who are not in education have no idea. First of all, sitting there and understand why. So I need y'all to paint this picture of what we're seeing in classrooms now that wasn't before, right? What the windows open, I need you to
each of you pick something different.
Yep, windows open, winter coats on, hats on. We had a very cold day and Boston Public Schools closed 2 weeks ago. And on my Facebook, some of my family members, some of my cousins, oh my gosh, these kids got it so good. They never closed school for us. We had to go to school in this many feet of snow. And I just got so frustrated from seeing that online. Like, how are you comparing when we was in second grade 15 plus years ago to with these kids? And I made a comment. I'm like, First of all, we were not going to school through a pandemic, okay? Like we weren't. So stop comparing it. And we were not sitting in classrooms when it was 5 degrees outside and windows had to be open. Oh, windows have to be open? Why is that? Again, a whole bunch of people that have so much to say about what's going on in the school system right now, who haven't been to school in 10 plus years and don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's another thing, because some of the principals, they're not transparent with the parents sometimes about what's going on. They're not transparent with how cold the classrooms are, you know, like even our COVID numbers and our breakouts, you know. I'm like, okay, I know my class just had a breakout. How come my parents didn't get that email? So that puts us in a position where I'm a parent too. And I'm like, listen, parents, I'm going to be transparent with you. It's going to be this cold out. The windows are open. Your babies are cold. Like we have to be. It's nothing nice in those classrooms right now. And then even the ventilation system that they have, that blows out cold air. It blows out cold air. So you have the cold windows open, and then these little ventilation systems that sit in front of us are also blowing out cold air.
Yes.
So you bring up something that's really important for families to be aware of. Don't just pay attention to what we're saying now in the pandemic. We have to be part of the school community year round. You have to be, because you just talked about ventilation systems blowing out cold air. If there was no pandemic in the month of January, it shouldn't be blowing out cold air. Right? But that's only going to change when we, the parents and families, get involved and kind of set expectations and hey, we need heat.
Yes.
You know? So your comment is very well taken, but I don't, once again, want us to lose sight of all the layers of what you're talking about. And it's not limited to Boston Public Schools. We're using that as the example, but it could be too hot in a Florida school.
Cool. Yeah.
Right? So, you know, please put these conversations in the context of where you are. You know, what did you want to share?
The coats and hats and those things are like, sometimes it's too cold, but then it gets too hot because the heat. Now they put the heat up because the windows have to be open. But the thing that gets me is the school classrooms. Now they had to add these air quality things on the, you know, to check the air quality in the room. These things probably should have been there before the pandemic. These old school buildings, people are getting sick, people are retiring, getting sick. So the air quality should have been something that was there pre-pandemic in general. Maybe the air cleaner should have been in there probably before that too, because a lot of people are sick all the time. And so things are happening because of the pandemic, but at the same time, it's like the pandemic is what's caused it to happen. So there's a lot, just a lot of things that's just because a lot of the school buildings in Boston are very old.
Yes,
there's not a lot of new buildings. A lot of it is old. Some of them are even closed. They were so old. But the children, at the end of the day, both the people that's working there and the children are not safe. People are being forced to not say what's happening to their bodies. I feel bad for teachers who are not, you know, they don't want to take the vaccine, but are afraid of losing their jobs now because it's almost like being threatened. There's just a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of stress, and people are not seeing this, like outside of working in this environment. They're not seeing what, you know, people are going through in these schools. You know, they have bills to pay. They have children that's in daycare. The children, they got to take care of the children out of daycare, or because there's always some kind of positive case. There's a lot going on. And I feel like there hasn't been like a real valid or consistent like answer to like what to do about all of this. It's stressful. It's been really stressful because of the pandemic.
It has been.
And that's why we are here, because only people who are in the schools, who are going through it, can tell the story accurately. And it's important for us to continue to tell our story and for folks to continue to listen, right? Like, I work in the schools, I have kids in the schools, but I don't know what's going on in my kid's school, right? I really don't. Even though I'm in the system, I know what's going on in the schools that I am in, but I don't know what's going on in her school. So it's important that I listen to your children. Because sometimes, you know, as parents, we don't listen to your children. If you think what they say is kind of off, ask questions. Because yes, they really are sitting in classes with their coats on. They're not telling the tale. They really, really are. Right. So we need to listen, and we need to ask questions. We need to ask questions of the people who are in the school. So we know the whole story because Chenetha, like you said, I know I'm not getting the whole story from my kid's school. I know that because I know she comes home and she said, well, this one has COVID. This teacher was out about, I know I didn't get an email.
Yep.
My text message didn't go off. So I know there's some things that are going on that I won't necessarily know about unless I ask and inquire, because that's one of the hugest ways that families can really be advocates for their kids and also for the staff in the school, because we know families have a lot of power. They have a lot of power, but they have to know that they have that power and utilize it and ask the questions and push the envelope so that we can, in fact, do the very best job that we can for kids. They have to remember we are all on the same side. We all want what's best for the kids.
Yes.
We all want what's best for the kids.
Yes.
So we can't help but ask the question, where do we go from here? I'm hoping you all aren't thinking of retiring or moving on. I don't want that to be the answer. But what keeps you going? Let's say it that way. In thinking of where you go from here, what keeps you going, or what advice would you offer if given the opportunity to share? Yonette, why don't you start?
The thing that keeps me going, I want to say, are the children. It's ultimately the children for me, because you are working with these children. We've been in school from kindergarten for 85 days now. We've built a relationship. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They've become part of your family.
Yes.
And for me, I just don't want to let them down. Like, I want to be able to do whatever and be there for them. You know what I mean? Just like you there for your children. Like, to me, they're like my children as well. Like, I feel like I need to be there for them. But it's hard sometimes to be there for them when you don't have enough, resources and things like that can help with, and what's going on with you. Have no control over this pandemic. I don't have any control over it. I don't know what the next steps really are as far as that's concerned. It's just what I'm hearing is going to happen, or, you know what I mean? None of us, I think, know the real answer to like what the next steps are. We want there to be a next step, but what is really the next step besides being there for them, trying to support them as much as we can until someone figures out what to do next.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's just how I feel.
Thank you.
And when I saw this question in the email, I was just like, I do not know how to answer this. I don't know. I don't know where we go from here. At first, I was like, it's just like so many things change daily. As soon as you think you have it down pat, they're throwing something else at you, But what I did come up with, where do we go from here, is we continue to support each other with things like this. We continue to have one another's backs and talk to your coworkers when you feel like you're having a hard day and you're in the lunchroom with a couple of other paras. Just let it out, because you don't understand how helpful that can be. We continue to take it one day at a time. We continue to let our voices be heard. What keeps me going, like Yonette said, is the kids, and knowing. I talked about the little girl with the anxiety. There was a time where I was like, I don't know if I can last through school year. I don't know. But then you think about, it's like, that little girl, what would she do this school year without me? Like, I can't just leave her, like your co-workers in the building that come and confide in you, I just can't let them down like that. Shalia, the person who, volunteered me to do this, she sees something great in me, even if like, I know I'm great, but Shalia sees something greater in me, and I appreciate her so much for that. That's why I never get upset when I get those phone calls. She calls me Eyes because she says like, oh, I need glasses or whatever. So I'll get a text, Eyes, I kind of volunteered you for something. And I never tell her no, because it's like, I appreciate that. You see something in me, So it's people like her that keep me going. It's people like new paras who say like, I look up to you, and they're texting you and asking you questions, and, they're following you, like you inspire me. It's things like that keep you going.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes. We got to continue to uplift one another. There's no question. I mean, if ever the phrase, it takes a village was true, listen, right here, right now, y'all, it takes the entire village. working together for our kids and our families. Like there's no way we're going to get through this to the other side, whatever that means. I don't even know if there is another side. I have no idea. I'm with you. I have no idea where we go from here, but I know we have to do it together.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
and I know that we got to support one another. And I know like we got to vent, right? We got to have places here where our voices can be uplifted. We have to honor one another, you know, and the work that we do every single day, you know, just to take it day by day. And sometimes it's hour by hour. Shh, don't tell nobody. But it's like that sometimes. Like, listen, I just need to get to 2:00 and I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna be all right, right? And some days it's just that hard, and some days it's knocking on the door and saying, "Have you been in the restroom today? Let me just stand in here and watch your kids while you go to the." It's all of that. It's all of that. It's all of that village work, all of that village work, and it takes that village work to do what we need to do for the academics for kids, right? It takes that. So that means everybody who interacts with that child. Every single adult in that building that interacts with that child has got to be on it and working together. Not, you know, we're not in competition with one another. This ain't about who got degrees, who got years. It's about the children in our classroom and how can we reach them.
We do take that home with us too.
You're right.
Because a lot of people don't realize that we have our own lives. You know what I mean? Like our own lives outside of school. But because, you know, so constantly sometimes, you know, you're talking about school. Every kind of everything you get, everything everywhere you are, even with your friends, you're talking about school. You take it home with you. So you're living school at home.
Yes.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I go to this building and I give these students my all every single day. I have a 6-year-old daughter and I'm just like, I refuse to come home and have to give her less, you know? Yeah. So it definitely is a hard balance, Yonette. It definitely is a hard balance.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I appreciate the fact that you both are talking about the personal side of this role, because many times, and Chandra and I have been, you know, working with teachers in this capacity since March 2020. And we often remind each other that we have to take care of ourselves. We have to think outside of what's happening in the school building. You cannot leave it all in the schoolhouse, is the phrase I would use. You have to, we know you guys are committed paraprofessionals, but that does not mean that everything you got is left at school. You have to think of yourselves. You have to think of your families. You have to think of what's important to yourselves. And we don't want anyone in any capacity to lose themselves to their work. That's really a part of the message where Chandra is always talking about self-care. And I'm always talking about empowerment, using your voice to empower yourself in your work. It is really important. So I just feel that Boston Public Schools is lucky to have you both, because the commitment shines clear. And I don't know why in my heart of hearts, I really want the parents to hear. This is just 2 examples of paraprofessionals. This is going on in every state, in every country. Old school, they called them the den mother, right? Or the school, the class mother. No more. They are and the last part of that word is professionals. And they should be acknowledged as in the same vein. They should be earning dollars that represents the work that they give. They should be given benefits that support the commitment that they're giving. And they should be encouraged to be teachers if that's what they want to be. Don't just leave them there because it's, oh, I don't have no one else to put. She's so good. You know, I've heard that happen. Oh, no. We can't have so-and-so go get their teaching license, because then who going to be in that room with that? That boy only sits still if Miss Jones is in. Right?
Right.
No. We're going to do like that young lady's doing for Chenetha. We're going to raise them up. And we're going to say, you know, I see in you being a math teacher, you being a special educator, you being a PE, whatever it is. If that's what they choose to be, let's let them fly. Go ahead, Yonette.
No, I was gonna say you made me think about the title that's been given to paraprofessionals before. The paraprofessional, like an aide, teacher's aide, and different names.
Mhm.
But even the paraprofessional is not completely sound itself because it's like almost a professional. So like, the names, the title, I guess, should change in general to something that represents, maybe not a teacher, but you could say teacher, but there's maybe something, that kind of respects the person in a little better way.
Mhm.
But the title also doesn't really represent what you are in the classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
in
title
our
that they
school,
give
they
you.
kind of switched the paraprofessional title and they call us educators.
We like it.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's why
that's
we
great.
call this
Yes.
Real Talk, Real Time Educators Forum.
That's
We
Yeah.
right.
intentionally don't say teachers because that leaves out a whole bunch of people
That's right.
that are also
Exactly.
committed to this work.
That's right.
Everyone needs to be introduced to that. Definitely.
That's
Across the
right.
globe. Across the globe.
Yes. So we talked about passions before, and we just want to let people know that we have an awesome program called the Passion Project. The newest episode is on our YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. You will be thrilled to hear from educator Tenitra Robinson from Houston, Texas, share about the stamp she is placing in the world of education. If you also are not a member of Real Talk Real Time Educators Forum, we have a group on Facebook. We hope you join us. Some of y'all are in the chat right now, and we thank you. We also have a YouTube channel where if you see any of our broadcasts and you missed them, go on back over there and check it out. Um, but we want you to know we will be back here on February 10th with a new episode of Real Talk Real Time with Chandra and Gorgette, the Reflections from the Heart.
Yes. And I'm going to need y'all to remind everybody that y'all need to share this information and knowledge. Like, it's not okay if we hold on to this information. We need everybody across education. We need everybody outside of education, every parent, every community, everybody everywhere to understand the work that is going on in schools and the amazing work that our educators
Mhm.
Mhm.
are doing every single day.
Every single day.
I'm gonna need y'all not to keep this secret. I'm gonna need y'all to do
Yeah.
that. I'm gonna need y'all to share. And I'm gonna need us all to remember that we need to reach back, right? And each one teach one. So I'm thinking about as new educators come into the building, come into the profession, let's bring them along. Let's help them out, right? New educators walk in and maybe they've never had a co-teaming experience before,
Mhm.
right? Like they need to understand. Y'all need to be running some workshops
Yes.
around co-teaming. Y'all need to be running some workshops around co-teaming. And since you all have figured it out, with your co-teaming partner, y'all can do it together. Y'all can do it together. Y'all can come back here and do a workshop. We might need to
I think you're right.
for real.
Time, yes.
For real, because it makes a huge difference for the kids when the whole village is working together for the kids.
Kids.
That's what needs to happen. And the only way it's going to happen is if people who are doing the work are doing the do and teaching others how to do it too.
That's right. Mhm. We agree. I want you all to have an opportunity to say a parting thought. Whoever wants to start.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me. I so enjoyed my time here. At first, I was like, I don't know if I can make it till 8 o'clock. I'm tired, but this sun gave me so much energy and I love it. So I just want to say thank you. I can't wait to press in so I could text Shalia and just say, thank you so much. It was such a great time. But I do want to leave everybody with, I was reading some passage, I think it was earlier this week, about powers that someone has sent me, and it was pertaining to what we're talking about, how things have changed during COVID. And one of the things that the writer wrote that I'm going to share, and I'm going to change the word powers to educators. It said educators were the steam that kept the train going. And that just stood out to me because I know in my school, in my district, like during this pandemic, educators were the steam that kept that train going. So I just want to put them out there. Any educators on, we see you. I see you.
Yes, I
Yes,
love
yes.
that.
Ooh, wow, I can't top that one.
No,
No,
come
but
on.
I was tired too, but I felt like this was good, and it was really, I want to thank you guys for inviting me to partake in this, and it kind of made me reflect, you know, about my job and about schools and the children and the whole thing and the pandemic, and it really it makes me think about what I'm going to be doing in the future, or what I'm going to be thinking about doing in the future with, you know, in the schools, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was really good. It was really good, and I got a lot out of it. And it's helpful to have people understand what you're going through and what you've been going through. And it's nice to see that you appreciate it, and you're, you know, they know what the role that you are doing affects everyone, and the children and families, because I have a lot of families who really appreciate me, and I am blessed because some families, you know, really, really appreciate me. Like, they're so happy that I'm still there, and their children is much older now, 5th grade, and I had them when they were in kindergarten. So these families they're close knit, and I like that.
I want you to know that I was thinking of everything when you were talking, Yonette,
Yes.
that more often than not, when things go bad, just remember those families or those kids, you know, like when you're at the market and a kid comes running up, Miss Lacet, you know, and the parents like, where you going? And they're like, that's my teacher. Just remember that, because you guys said it. It's about the children.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all had those experiences where you're like, this is for the birds. But the truth is, we still come back, and we come back because it really is our life's work. I feel like education is my life's work. And when things got bad, I would always remember it's for the children why I'm still here. And you took it broader. You said it's for the families why I'm here, because when we get to make an impact in those children's lives, our hope is that it can make an impact in those families, because when we're educating them and they can go on to high school, go into the military, become a hairstylist, and they can bring resources to their family, and they can kind of uplift and contribute to their communities. That is why we're doing what we're doing. Don't forget.
Why are you preaching tonight? Why are you preaching though?
It's true. And we all can relate. Every educator can relate. Administrative, faculty person. You get to the point where you're like, oh my. And when people say, well, why are you still doing that? Because we've all been at that too, right?
Yeah.
We do too much complaining, and they be like, so why are you still with them kids? So we just have to be honest with ourselves. And I try to minimize the complaining, because the fact is, I have come to know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Chandra, what's your closing thought?
That's right. You know, I just feel blessed to be able to be in this space and to have these conversations. You know, it is unbelievably energizing. I feel like y'all too. I'm like, ooh, Lord, 8 o'clock sometimes. You know, and then you know how you get educators in the room. Here we go. Like here we go. And like we're ready to do it again. And I feel like we can't just wait until opportunities like this happen. Like we got to re-energize ourselves on a regular basis. You know, like, come on, sis. Let's just have that good conversation about education that gets us laughing. Or remember that family? Or oh, where does that kid? Like we have to do that, right? And continue to recharge our own batteries and remember why we do this work. This is, you know, I have said ever since I started teaching, this is the hardest thing I have ever done next to raising my own children. It just is. And you got to know all way down deep in here that this is the stuff that you're supposed to be doing. Because there are days where you like, y'all could listen, you on my nerves, and you listen, all of y'all, right? And then it's that kid, it's that family, it's that, right? Like, and you like, this is why I do it. This is why I do what I do, you know? And we got to sometimes remind our other people about that, because sometimes when, you know, they in a hard space, you got to remind them,
Yes.
It's about the kids. It's not about that policy. It's not about that assessment or whatever the next foolish thing they're going to throw at.
Yeah.
It's about the kids in front of us right now.
Children.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we thank everyone that joined us tonight for Real Talk, Real Time, the Chandra and Gorgette Reflections from the Heart. Thank you, Yonette. Thank you, Chenetha.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. You guys have a good evening as well.
Good
Bye.
night. Thank you so much.
All right.
Good night.
Stay healthy.
Yes.